Welcome to the True That Show. So, have you ever really wondered who are you? Like, really? Well, today that's exactly what we're going to talk about. And Deborah and I have decided to brave up and ask each other the questions. So I know that a lot of you have been asking, different questions. You want to know a bit more about us. So we're going to peel off a few layers today, not too many. We're going to talk about ourselves a bit. So I'm happy that I'm not starting. How are you? And who are you? Really?
Yeah. How are you and who are you? That's so, it is brave, right? It is brave because there's so many things about ourselves that we want to share, and there's so many things about ourselves we never want to share. And then there's things that we keep to certain people in our lives, right? And when someone asks, who are you? That's such a big question, because I think it's a question that we ask ourselves, right? I was just sharing with Caroline earlier that I've been spending this week hanging out with people that I've known for 30, 35, 40 years. And when you reminisce like that, you get to go back to that place in time. And there's things that you loved about that time. And there's things that you're like, ooh, I'm only glad that 4 or 5 people know, the time that you sat around and, you all, I don't know, there's things that we did. There's things that we did that really gets you to that next stage of your life and next stage of your life. But to really honestly just, take down a couple of those onion layers that you talked about and be able to share about who I am. And what is it that we're doing here, right? What is it that we're doing here? Because we're asking people to do the same thing. The show's called True That Show. So what we hope that you get from our call today is, yes, we know that some people want to know a little bit more and deeper about ourselves, and that's fantastic and that's super cool. But also, hopefully it shines a light. I was talking about shining a light a little bit on letting you kind of answer those questions for yourself. Isn't it the omnipotent, right? Is that omnipotent spiritual, meditator on top of the mountain? Oh, finally the omnipotent is to really know who you are and love who you are and accept every bit of yourself. Personally, if that's you, please call me. I'd love to get to know and see what that is. I think as we start to get more seasoned in life and as we start to accept ourselves a little more, we get to really appreciate how we got there. The bruises sometimes last a little long. And I think as I kind of go through life, I think there's been some, stitched up on my heart. And I think it's missed a couple of stitches at times that took to heal a lot longer than it did, whether it was, my fault or otherwise. But so who am I when people ask me that, or, I feel really like, that's when I start to really evaluate like my morals or values or who I show up as, right? I mean, who am I? I'm, a woman who lives in Vancouver, Canada. I absolutely love the vibe of my city. I love travel. I go around the world, and I appreciate kind of the history and the culture of different places. And I see them through my eyes, right? I mean, we all see things through our eyes. So I love to travel. And I am the single mom of 2, what I would consider the best kids in the world. And I hope you think that of your kids as well, right? The journey of being a parent, I've been married, I had a very, very long-term marriage. So I know what it's like to be married. I know what it's like to not be married. I know what it's like to raise children as a single parent. I know what it's like to raise children as a family. And, the differences in that. I personally was one of those people that absolutely loved the feeling of being married. I absolutely love the feeling of being married. I love building things with people. I love building things. And one of the things that I loved about being married was the fact that I felt like we were building something that, we kind of had each other's backs, and we collaboratively together were making decisions about each other's careers. And I was really fortunate, I attracted someone in my life that had the same zest for their career that I had for mine. And that was fantastic. I think it just catapulted my ability to be creative. I am a true creative. I love creativity. Not only do I love to draw and read poetry and, read books and look at magazines for the pictures, not just through the articles. And I love to hang out in the art gallery. And one of my lifelong dreams is to be able to be, so sound financially that I can go hang out in the library and turn my phone off anytime that I want, in an art gallery. and just sit there forever. Just sit there forever. And one of my goals here, I'll share with you one of my life dreams, one of my bucket lists is to be able to plan a trip around the world based on their art galleries. And so I want to go to different countries in the world, and I want to go from art gallery to museum to art gallery to museum to art gallery to museum. And if you could throw a music festival in there at the same time, that would be awesome. And just kind of travel around the world based on their art galleries. So that's some insight into myself. I think I'm a truth seeker. You know, I think I'm a truth seeker. I do have that fire inside me to keep kind of peeling back the onion a little bit and learning more. I mean, maybe someone would call me a personal growth junkie or something like that. Like I'm willing to take a look at both sides of the coin. And if there's something that I can better myself so I don't have an experience again, then I'm all for it. I mean, sometimes maybe I self-analyze too much. But I do believe I've gotten to a place in my life where I'm pretty self-observant, where I can kind of call myself out if I need to. Highly addicted. Yes, I am highly addicted to music. Absolutely love music. And you know, I was raised by a single mom. I absolutely appreciate the truth of the dollar. You know, it didn't. You know, it's one of those places where didn't come from a life of having everything that I wanted. You know, kind of like, I'm not going to say rags to riches, because I think that's insulting in relationship to my family doing the best they can with what they had. I don't like that term, rags to riches, and I certainly don't want to lay myself out that I'm living in a holy castle. But I think I know what it's like to not have, and I think I know what it's like to have, and I've also know what it's like to not have and then not have again. Right. So I think I really understood, and I've had to really overcome. So the mindset that I was raised in, I think I've had just a lifelong experience and training. I think I've been in a marathon training of mindset my whole life, you know, because I believe that I adapted the mindset of the environment of which we live in, you know, and I really believe that children live what they learn. And I really came from a place where, you know, pennies were pinched, and I heard very young, money does not grow on trees. And so I had really probably more of a lack mindset, and I had to really work through that and work past that the more abundant you think, the more abundant you are, right? The more loving that you are, the more love that you have, the more that you give, the more that you receive. You know, I think I was kind of raised with a bit of scarcity, because we didn't have, but we also took the shirt off our back. Like, there's a lot of people, and I'm not going to announce to the world that I don't lock my door always. But what I mean by my door isn't locked, it means that, you know, I was really raised with that philosophy. It's one of the things that I love the most, is that if someone needs a place to stay, there's always a couch, you know, and if the couch is full, there's always a floor. And as long as there's a pillow and a blanket and there's food in the fridge, then that's just kind of who we are. And those are some of the family traits that I love, even my extended family. You know, I'm super grateful that I was raised in a family that I had lots of cousins, and we kind of all had that mindset. I think to this day that we all have each other's back. And I'm not saying our family's not, you know, I mean, there's parts of it that's functional, and there's parts of it that, you know, you could write a book about, and I probably will one day. Right. But I know that we all kind of had the mindset of, you know, this is kind of the way it was, and we wanted something different and better for that next generation. And we kind of had to break our own barriers around that. I certainly was not, I didn't get away from that one. You know, I didn't get away from that one. So really, there was been a lot of self-discovery in terms of family and family dynamics, and what does a healthy relationship look like, and what does a healthy family look like, and what does communication look like. And oh my gosh, did I ever have to learn a lot about boundaries? You know, what were my boundaries? What would, you know, where were my boundaries? What were boundaries, you know? And then getting to a place of just getting really comfortable with who I am. One of my biggest heroes, I guess if you want to talk about heroes, was my grandmother. Now, my grandmother gave people a run for her money. But I think genetically I was built like her. And so she was that beacon for me, because she was the outside version of what was going on the inside. So she was bold and she was brave. And when relationships didn't work for her, she really had a lot of bravery around just calling it out what it was. And if they worked, great. And if they didn't, that was okay. So she was really, you know, people would see her in her day as very cutting, but it was just like, she was just a no BS lady. Right. And so on the inside, I was like, that's my lady, you know, that's my lady, but I was too young and it wasn't the generation where you spoke up. And so I just liked how brave she was. business. And when I used to go visit her, I used to go over to her place and, you know, she'd pour a toddy. And if you don't know what that is, well, too bad for you. And, you know, we'd play crib and she'd cheat and I'd catch her. And I'm like, you can't cheat. And she's like, oh, what are you talking about? That's, you know, that's a 19 hand. I'm like, that's a 4 hand, you know? So you had to count cards real quick. And then we'd, you know, she'd make meatloaf. And if you don't know how to make meatloaf, you're not part of our family. And just all those kind of traditional things. And I just loved that. And we would sit around and we would chat, and she was quite brave. And I got a lot of my bravery from her, so that when the time was right, I could be. And honestly, one of the best ways to depict kind of who I am was I was about 2 years old, and my mother used to get a call a lot from the neighbors saying Deb escaped again. And I literally was in my room in my crib, and I would hop my crib over, literally me and my crib, and I'd move it. And I'd jump all the way to the window. I'd pop the window up. And I was like a year and a half old, and I'd go out, and we were like in a big, big old heritage home. And I used to go out on the, like literally, and run down the veranda, like run down the stairs. And then we had like, you know, a cherry tree and an apple tree and a pear tree. And we were on the back of a school. So, you know, those big metal school fences. So there's a big metal school fence. And so one time they found me sitting on top of that. I was 2 years old. It was 6 feet and I didn't know how to get down. So then, you know, they kind of got me down. And then another time they would find me in the tree, in the apple tree or cherry tree. I don't know where I thought I was going, but they got me down. And then actually they had a fence, like, you know, those kind of white picket fences, whatever. I don't know if it was white, but I couldn't get out because they locked it. And so I dug a hole underneath. And the neighbor would call and go, your daughter's running down the street again. So I think I've always had a desire to go. People are like, oh, hey, so how do you like being on and off planes? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I feel really at home. But what I think that is, I think that I really love to expand. I like to share. I'm very kind of open that way. You know, it's no surprise that I'm an entrepreneur. It's no surprise. I think it was that creativity that was driving me. And just non-restriction, you know, non-restriction. So I know I'm kind of rattling off all sorts of different aspects of myself, but I'm not going to say I've come through life unscathed. You know, I'm not going to say that my heart's made its way through without some punctures. I'm sure there's a couple of little places that could still use some loving and some healing. I think that, you know, I've had to learn what dysfunction means so I can learn what function is. I've had to learn around things around business. Like, you know what? I was naive. I had an epiphany and thought I'd start an aromatherapy home party company. And I took my $2,000 that was in my bank as a single mom and started a business. Now, in retrospect, if I had, you know, maybe gone to school and learned some business management, maybe it would have been different, maybe not. But I just kind of brave out. And sometimes I make mistakes, and sometimes they're retrievable, and sometimes they take me longer to recover from. But that, I think that's just who I am, right? I just think that's who I am. And getting okay with who I am has been another different part. Knowing who I was, knowing who I am, and then getting okay with who I am, and then associating with people that allow me to feel okay about who I am, not feeling ashamed about who I am, you know what I mean? Not feeling ashamed, or not feeling shame about any of the choices that I've made in the past. Apologizing when you need to. Like, you know, I learned about how to apologize. And sometimes, you know, I remember taking this great course. Myself and my girlfriend went down to the US, and we took a course from the Chopra Center because both our hearts were broken, and we went down there. And I remember that was kind of the first epiphany that I had around sometimes hurt people. You know, sometimes there's just casualties of war. And I remember just really, that was just such an eye opener for me around being able to forgive some of the stuff that had happened in my life, because some of the stuff that just happened in my life was my perception of what happened in my life, wasn't necessarily how it was meant. That wasn't the intention of like the family dynamics or what have you, you know? So I remember really thinking, as I was sitting there, it's like, okay, there's probably some apologies I need to make, and some forgiveness that I need to have as well, with some people that, you know, had some experiences that just affected me in my life, particularly when I was growing up. So I'm kind of a, you know, I'm one of those solo social people. I love time on my own. I love time to create. I'm not afraid to be alone. You know, I owned a private health studio for 27 years. I did massage for many, many years. I know what it's like to work in silence and quiet and aromatherapy and crystals and get to know myself and like myself. And then I love to be, you know, in a place where I'm socializing and helping people. And yeah, and I think I'm just kind of going on, and I'm not sure that I'm saying anything of value, but hopefully this has been a good insight into who I am, and, you know, just the brink of that. That's kind of the first couple of layers. I'm sure as we start to get to know our listeners more, we'll share more as time goes on. And that's the one thing I like about us bringing on guests, is that they talk about things like awareness or finances or whatever it is that they're bringing in. Then we get to share that part of ourselves on, you know, say someone talking about finances, and I'm like, I'm really interested in what you're saying, because, you know, for me, that was an education that I had as I was growing up. Or if someone's talking about awareness, and it just kind of allows us to share those pieces of ourselves as well, right? And I think the more real that we get, the more real that, I mean, that's what our show's all about. It's called True That, right? So I don't think any of us get through life without a few bumps and grinds, and I definitely have had mine. I've definitely had mine, and you know, there's no, you know, I think some of the things that we do, and some of the charities even that we're a big part of, kind of reflect some of our life experiences, right? You know, so I'm a big advocate. I'm a big advocate of human rights, and I love that. I have my favorite charity around that, and I kind of donate my time as much as I can. I just really, I love, I don't know. I just love that. I love advocacy. So that is enough about me. So
it's funny that you said, I don't know if I'm bringing value, because it seems like when we talk about ourselves, we always, well, not always, but if you're similar to me, like when I talk about myself too much or even a bit, I'm like, I don't want to bore people.
right.
No, but it's not. It's actually super interesting when someone can express himself, you know, so well this way, and you see that they have such a path that is exceptional, and everyone's path is exceptional, but to have someone being able to actually express it this way is, for me, brings a lot of value. And as you were talking, I felt like taking out pen and paper, but the magic in this is that I can rewind and listen to it. But there's so many different subjects that I was just like, oh my gosh, we could talk about this, because you're about yourself very casually, but I know you a lot, I think. Well, anyway, more than those two layers. And I know how much work there is. It's a lifetime work to be able to actually just sit there and blurb that out like, hey, you know, I'm talking about myself, which is, I also find it super impressive, because you know, a few years ago, if someone would have asked me, tell me something about yourself, I would have said, like, I'm a mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so being able to talk about yourself is very mature and wise. And so you did bring a lot of value. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome. But I think that's it, you know, and I think one of the things that we can take, like if I was to say to someone, I want you to take something away, I was just sharing with Caroline this morning that I was sitting with a group of ladies that I've known for, you know, 20, 30, up to 40 years. And so, you know, when you get into that late night, you know, conversations where it's getting deeper and it's deeper and it's deeper. Even some of the people that I've known for a very long time shared information with me about their life, about their past, you know, things around parenting that I would never have known. And I think one of the things that I found really interesting, and like you said, that gives you a completely different level of respect almost, I think, for other people, or lets you look at them as very human, which is, you know, this whole wave and this new almost marketing wave of transparency and authenticity, is that ask people, so what is it, something like, even in a group, you're like, so tell us something that you've never shared with anybody. You know, what is something that you've done, or what's something that you've experienced, or, you know, and it's like, oh, you know, I jumped out of a helicopter, or, hey, I scuba dived with this, or, hey, I survived this, or, hey, I was in Montreal once and my girlfriend won this thing on the radio about bungee jumping. I didn't really know much about it, but we went to some mountain and climbed up a crane and, you know, jumped off backwards, you know what I mean? Like, you know, they're like, oh yeah, really? things that you've overcome or things that people overcome, it's amazing. It's amazing what people will share. And it gives you for me, it gives me such hope for the human spirit. It gives me such respect for the human spirit. And it also gives me the ability to be less judgmental and forgive way quicker. Forgive way quicker. We don't know where people are coming from sometimes, right? So.
And one action doesn't define a person.
True.
That because I did a few of those actions.
Yeah. Okay. So hey, look at.
But it's funny. I don't know why this story came to mind when you said, you know what's the one thing you did? And you talked about winning a radio contest and things like that. We were in a bar when I was 19, I believe. And my friend won a contest, like a trip down to Miami. I had never gone out of Montreal, basically, Quebec. And she's like, do you want to come with me? I'm like, of course. So we went to Miami. So picture this, we're 250 people between the age of 18 and 25.
All right.
You know, it was what it was. Our only thing that my best friend and I said, it's like, we're not hooking up with anyone. We'll all see them back in Montreal. So let's keep a good reputation. And that's really, I think we're the only one that did not put anyone. But anyway, long story short, I was a very shy, timid person, not confident in my body, not confident in my skin, like complex on my skin. And you know, so many different things. People were seeing me one way and I was seeing myself a completely different way. So there was those two girls that were there on the trip that we did not like. You know, there's some, you just meet that person and you see her face and you're like, I don't like you. That was basically those two girls. And they announced a contest of the nicest legs. That was so not me. And then my friend is like, she's going. And I was just like, what are you doing? She's like, Caroline, you have to don't let these girls win. You have to get on there. I'll get on there with you. We do the contest. We're in Miami. Like, who's? And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, that's your moment, girl. Like, here, no one will know. So go ahead, just go win against those girls. Like, do it for us. And I'm like, okay. So obviously I took a sip of my water.
Yeah. Peer pressure and vodka. It's amazing what'll happen.
I know. And anyway, I went on and I did the contest, and happened that my best friend and I were a tie at the end. So we won. So, you know, it is what it is. We won. We're like, there you go. You're not that great to the other girls. And my best friend is like, so how do you feel? I'm like, wow, it was actually cool. Like, I can't believe I did that. Oh, but I'm so glad it's here and it's going to stay here. So long story short, we come back from our trip. She lives 10 hours away from me. She phones me one day. She's like, go to the corner store. I'm like, what? She's like, go get the paper. There's a list there. And the title was like, Party Zoo in Miami. And there's me in the front page.
Whoa.
I still have this article, but so like the one thing that I did. So first of all, you never know what's going to follow you. You never know what's not gonna, but that's, that was just a little bit of my intro into, not that you did ask the question to talk about myself, but
no,
I decided to jump. No, I was extremely, extremely shy and timid when I was young. And I would say I was like that up until probably just a few years ago. I'm the type of person that every time I got a compliment, like, oh, nice shirt. Oh, it's an old one. Nice hair. Oh, you think? Always countering every single compliment. And I had the reputation of like, man, you cannot take a compliment, which is true. But anyway, I was listening to your story, Deb, and it's funny how we have such a similar background, and we both came out of it differently. Like we both dealt with it differently, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a single parenting house as well. My parents divorced. I was 9 months old. But us, it did the whole opposite of you. So we kind of moved away from the family. So we isolated ourselves a bit more. There was not a lot of money either. So instead of me having scarcity like you, I became when I had money, I was always spending. Like money was burning my hands. I could not keep it in my pockets. And, the minute I had money, I had to buy something for someone. It was always like I wanted to please people and give gifts and everything, and always giving. So I didn't learn how to keep stuff for myself. It's always about giving. There's always someone who has less than me. We would have a meal. I would divide it to say like, well, I'll eat tomorrow. They can eat now. But I've always been more on that side of things. I think that I was extremely shy, timid, like I said. So I was really, like put baby in a corner.
Mm-hmm.
That baby in the corner. I was always like looking from the outside. I'm the youngest one of a family of 4, but I was only raised with one sister. So I've always been the baby. So everyone always kept me a bit a part of things, like to protect me, but that also taught me how to isolate myself a bit more. And I mean, I had a loving mother and everything. I aside from that, I had a good childhood. But also when I got into, high school, one time a teacher told me something and I answered back, and it was kind of sarcastic. That's probably where my sarcasm started a little, and everyone laughed. And I was just like, whoa, I was funny.
Yeah.
And then another situation happened and I was just like, whoa, I was funny. So that almost became my disguise of being the funny one, the clown one. So I apologize for the dogs right now, but so it became a bit of my cover. It was being funny, seeing people laugh. So basically my high school, I was super intelligent and I should have ended up with straight A's, and I did not end up there because it was way more important to be the clown of the class. And that pushed me, and probably until I was a good 24, to not say no to anything. Say yes to everything. Be the party girl, be the crazy one, be the one that would take all the risks. You just had to dare me and I would do it. Well, all right. Same thing of that contest. It wasn't my personality typically, but I was there. So I was like, let's do it. So yeah, but I think that through that, there's a big part of myself that I've put on the back burner because I wasn't looking at what I really wanted or who I was. And I was kind of always pushing away the compliments. And if people would tell me you have talents in that, I would shut it down. I would just stay really in the funny phase of things. And for me, what it brought me to, well, parties and, numbing and a lot of, escaping reality a little. But on the other hand, I always was the type of person who had 2 to 3 jobs, always working, always in the top ones at work. I was super, super functional and a big achiever in everything that I was doing. So it's kind of like I had 2 sides to me. And on until I had my son when I was 24. And then I became a mother. So when I gave birth, it's like I had a purpose. I finally had a purpose. I was a mother. So for years after that, my only focus was that I was a mother. Even if I had a career, even if I was a manager of operations, even if I was this and that, if you would have asked me, who are you? I would have said, I'm a mom. So and so's mom. Like I was, when you don't even say your name, you're like, I'm so and so's mom. Yep. And you were saying that what it taught you to be in a single family is to build with someone in your relationships. Me, it taught me the opposite. It's like almost in a relationship, the other one is your enemy. Always be careful, sleeping with the enemy. for me, that was a relationship. Always be careful, always have a backup plan, always have a cushion, have your escape plan. So I was married twice, and basically with both, that's basically how I was, to always have my escape plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that, through different events in life, sometimes your back is put against the wall, and it shows you that, whoa, what you're doing is not working that great. So I went through that and realized that now, yes, I would be ready to have a relationship to build with someone, but I'm in a very interesting situation right now.
Yeah.
And actually, like, I could make a reality show here, because so my husband and I separated 2.5 years ago. So he moved out, and we were still friendly, and friendly, because you can't kill your husband in front of your child. So you need to be careful. And so for me, my priority has always been my kids. So that's how we always kept it. So for 2 years, it was okay. And then the pandemic happened. So one night that he came, and he's like, well, I'll stay just because I don't want to bring, move from houses to houses and infect other people, and the whole deal. That was 6 months ago. Here.
Yeah.
So now we're kind of like this family. We're parenting together. Our relationship has never been this good, because we actually talk to each other. We understand each other. We listen to each other, but we're not together. And
Yeah.
As I was listening to you, there's one epiphany that I just had, is that really, for me, a relationship has never been about building something with someone. Although that has always been my dream, of having a family that would stay together their whole life, raise your kids, your house and this and that and that. I've never acted this way. I've always acted as, you are my enemy, and I need to be careful of you. So it's funny, because now we're not together anymore, but our relationship has never been as good. Right. So who knows where it's going? Stay tuned for that. But
stay tuned for that.
Aside from that, there was my whole business side that has always been. I started entrepreneurship very young as well. Even was working for someone else, it was always about managing their things. So I didn't have your gut of jumping and starting something for myself, but I did it managing other people's, businesses. So in that sense, that's why it's amazing. We're so similar and so different. Yeah.
But it's interesting. I think that, so as I listen to you, there's pieces of what you're talking about that I relate to. So as much as I wanted to build, there was still a part of me that was like, okay, I need to be careful, because I had come from a divorced experience, right? So I had seen my mother before me. It's very different how things were treated culturally when the father left. It's like, well, if you got alimony, good for you, So I think we know what happened. So there's parts, and I think it depends on safety. I know safety is a big word probably for many people. It was like how safe I let myself feel was then I would let barriers down, and all of those dynamics that I'm sure people will hear more about us as we move along our journey with everybody and all our listeners, right? And listening to them and talk and sharing their experiences too. So I think the cool thing about getting a sense about who you are and who I am, and who we think we are, and listening to each other is that allowance, that understanding that, Caroline, I see you, and I see how other people see you, and they're like, man, I would love to be where she is. I'd love to be where she is. And when you know the journey that someone's gone through, of how you weaved it, and I love how, there's times where we weave the same thoughts, but in different scenarios, and I think that it lets us know that we're kind of multidimensional. And I also think it lets us know that we are our perceptions. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. There was time where I sat with my brother. He's only 2 years older than me. And I'm like, so tell me, what was it like to live in our house? And honestly, I looked at him afterwards, and I'm like, as God as my witness, and I am a God girl, I said to him, whose house did you live in? I honestly, my mouth was on the floor. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I told my story and he's like, what? Like what? And it was the two people living in the same house with the same parents, having two completely different experiences, taking those experiences into the world and having two completely different experiences, right? And then trying to find those common denominators. So, I mean, first of all, I want to congratulate. Yeah.
I was just going to say my experience like that is my son. That was my biggest eye-opener ever. You know, I raised him in a way, I know what I gave him, I know what I did not give him, and this and that and that. And one day when he was 20, he just like laid it on the table. And when I say lay it on the table, it was literally that. But he told me, and I've raised my kids to be really open and honest with me, so there's no filter. So they're not scared of hurting me if there's something. That day, I wish I would have also thought, you know, sometimes it's good to, you know, coat things a bit. But no, it wasn't, you know, it was nothing horrible or whatever. But when he gave me what the perspective of his life was.
Right.
I was shocked. I was just like, who raised you? And it's basically, you know, I've been single with them for a while and then I got remarried, but I totally get what you're saying because you live the same life, but the way someone perceives what's happening to them is a game changer.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's where patience and tolerance comes in.
Yeah. It's also criminal laws, you know, because there's some boundaries.
Boundaries, perception.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you know what? Hey, let's wrap up our interviewing each other today. Because I think that, you know, it's funny how I was like, I don't know if anyone got anything out of that, but I think that one of the things that makes us the most successful, and I'm just going to say that, you know, we've been graced with doing the work that we've needed to do to get to where we needed to go. I mean, I think that's why we are where we are, right? And one of the things that I think makes us the most successful and has probably drawn people to us and also drawn people away. Really, the truth is, right? You can only take people as far as you've gone, and all of that is true, and energies are true, and vibrations are true, and how we communicate and how we attract our tribe. But one of the things I think that has made us so successful is our ability, one, to be vulnerable, at least with each other, two, to brave up and kind of do what we're doing, and three, create a platform to allow people just to be human, like just to be human, you know, just to be real and be human and be okay with that. Appropriately, you know, appropriately. But yeah, I think it's important for people to get that insight. Like, oh, look at that, Caroline, who I just saw walk across the stage for earning this or has this, or I look at her, I'm like, wow, I have people like, they're like, man, I'm so intimidated. She's so successful. And I'm like, so did you know that girl went on a trip and when she was 19, did a look at my legs contest. Now I've got personally, now I have, thank you for sharing, because now I have things I can use against you. But yeah, so no.
That the newspaper, there's nothing you can use against.
That's right, it was on the newspaper.
It on the podcast, so.
Yeah, there you go. That's a little bit of karma too, right? So a little bit of karma. Those girls that were there were like,
see what I was just thinking, and Deb, when I was listening to you sharing, like the word that I would have summed up everything with is brave. You turn around and you're like, now I have something to use against you. Like, impressed. Like for this time, I usually, guys, I'm the one picking on her. I don't understand now, like tables that turn. Like she's mean today. So,
yeah,
but
there you go.
Thank you to everyone for listening and being with us. And I will repeat it again. If you have any comments, suggestions, whatever, if you just want to share your story with us, we will read everything that we receive. Deb and Caroline @gmail.com. And it will be a pleasure to read you. Thank you for being there. Deborah, thank you so much for sharing with us. And I will get back to you on the next episode.
She will. Thanks, everybody. Okay, bye for now.